off script a little bit because I was humbled by meeting you guys for the last 2 days on the golf tournament, at the reception, at the dinner. I've been to a lot of conferences throughout my years, but this is the first time where, and it's gonna sound like I'm sucking up to you, but it's gonna feel like, this is the first time when I met the backbone of America. I met people here that, you could make TV movies about. I met people that were lifelong cops. I met an emergency fire guy that not only saved people from death, but that has gone through a death experience himself. I met people that have been mayors of their cities. So as a naturalized American, this is what the world looks to, you guys. So please give yourselves a round of applause because I think you deserve it. So without further ado, let me introduce my co-founder. I have a lapel pin, he does too. I'm Czech originally, and he's Texan. He's one of your own, Matt Hansen. He was born in Houston, has gone through Catholic Jesuit schools in Houston, then went to U of T, where he's played water polo. It got him to Australia. He was a water polo player representing your lovely state. Matt has then gone off into the big world of New York, became briefly an investment banker, then switched to create value at Madison Dearborn, where he started his private equity career. That was, how long ago was that?
2002.
2002. Matt was with Madison Dearborn. Then he had a 15-year career with Cerberus Capital Management, which is one of the premier private equity firms. He established their European private equity practice.
I'm sorry, Madison Dearborn was 1999. Cerberus was 2002.
He's normally good with numbers too. And he and I came together to take advantage of what we believe is a unique opportunity, investing, fixing European financial services, banks, investment, insurance companies, asset managers. Matt is somebody that is a friend. We've done things together since 2008. We established this firm in 2018, so it was 10 years in the making. But it's something that I think he'll tell you more about. And he also went to Columbia Business School. So, Matt, come up here.
Don't you love it how these Harvard Business School guys think about, every other business school like it's the gum on the bottom of their shoe? Like, oh yeah. Welcome to the conference. Isn't it just great to be together again? I never thought I'd say this, but I'm happy to be at a business conference, sitting in a windowless room, wearing a suit, giving a speech on fiduciary responsibility of vocation. So let's, I just want to say thank you to the TEXPERS people for having the courage to host this event and get us all back together again. It really is wonderful to be here in person. And you can't mute me, which is, I guess, the downside. And thank you, Miroslav, for that kind introduction. It's been a pretty fun ride. And for all that stuff you said, the thing that you missed that I'm proudest of is being the son of Margaret Hansen, who's with us here today. You want to stand up? Margaret worked for the city of Houston since before I was born. She started at the city in 1966 and retired in 2002. And her husband, Mike Hansen, was also a city employee, may he rest in peace. And, like I think most people in America. She doesn't have a stock portfolio or a bond portfolio. She depends on that pension from Houston Municipal Employees Public Pension System. And that's actually worked out really well for her. Her retirement has been relatively financially anxiety-free. In a world plagued by financial insecurity, that is a tremendous gift. And I want to thank the people at Houston Uni for giving her that amazing gift. So let me get into this. This is me, founder and chief investment officer at Financial Services Capital. I already introduced you to founder and mom, but this is what a retirement free of financial stress and anxiety looks like. Tomorrow she's getting on a plane with two friends to go to Mount Rushmore, which is of course funded by her HMEPS pension. Earlier she was at the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and she's 81 years old and really enjoying this part of her life. And that wouldn't be possible without the efforts of the people here today. And I think it's good to keep in mind who it is that we are exercising our fiduciary responsibility for and why we're all here today. Oops. So what is fiduciary responsibility? The legal definition is that fiduciary responsibility refers to the obligation that one party has in relationship with another one to act entirely in the other party's behalf and self-interest. So for everyone that came to this conference today, for all of us, fiduciary responsibility is our North Star. This is the principle that should guide all of our actions. And it's not, some distant legal esoteric thing. It's about Margaret Hanson being able to take a trip with some friends to Mount Rushmore. Now, how does one exercise their fiduciary responsibility? I was a student of finance at the University of Texas, and I got my MBA in value investing from Columbia, which is where Warren Buffett went to school, and he studied from Graham and Dodd, and he seems to know what he's doing. And he has two rules. Rule number one is to never lose money, and rule number two is to never forget rule number one. And we believe that deep value is the prudent, conservative, predictable way to invest money, so that people like my mom have more money when they retire, than they did when they started contributing to their pension and retirement funds. And not losing money sounds really simple, but in today's day and age, it's a little harder than it sounds. The current price to earnings ratio of the S&P 500 is an astronomical 44 times. And just to put that in relative context, if you looked at the 100-year average of the S&P 500, it'd be 17 times. The S&P Global Ratings measure of distress in the financial markets, which tracks issuers with bond spreads above 10%, has fallen to the lowest level since October of 2007. I think we remember what October 2007 felt like. So this would be the average portfolio that in years past would traditionally have been recommended. And with those kind of statistics, it's kind of hard to think, that if you just stick with 44 times and tightest spreads since October 2007, that's easy. So we have a different philosophy, which is a private equity style of investing, which is to as you know, if you read Graham and Dodd or Warren Buffett, it's important that you buy at a discount to intrinsic value. Value is what you get, price is what you pay. And you always want to make sure that the value is greater than the price. And in so doing, you got to make sure that the delta between the value and the price gives you a secure margin of safety, which is a phrase popularized by another one of my lodestars, Seth Klarman at Baupost, who's also a Graham and Dodd disciple. And the goal is to prevent putting capital at risk. And again, just to bring this back down to practical reality and earth, this is the virtuous circle that happens when you allocate capital correctly. You have your beneficiaries. Here in this picture, that's a picture of our operating partner, Pedro Escudero, handing Maria Ortega a 700,000 euro check, and she's crying. It's for an acquisition we just completed today. It was announced this morning. So this is from a couple hours ago in Oviedo, Spain. Ufasa, just to give you some background, is an old and historic company. It stands for Unión Financiera Asturiana. It was started by the municipality of Asturias, and we just found the shareholders, many of whom didn't even know that they owned shares, because the municipality had distributed the shares to its citizens. And Maria Ortega had no idea that she even owned shares in Ufasa. So walking into her living room and telling her that, you know, she was going to get a check for $700,000 was a pretty good day for her. And then we, as owners and stewards of that asset, you know, with the passage of time, will create value and return more money to our beneficiaries than they contributed to us. And that is a very virtuous circle. And that's why I call fiduciary responsibility a vocation, right? You hear a lot about some of the more negative stuff in finance, whether you're reading about Jeffrey Epstein or whomever. And there is a virtue in our business. And something happened in my life where I had to do some soul searching to find out what my vocation was. And it came out to be fiduciary responsibility. And just to give you, before I get into that, I wanted to give you a view on private equity as I've lived through it. So I started my private equity career in the 1990s at Madison Dearborn Partners. And you know, those guys have been together doing private equity for 39 years. They were some of the founders of private equity. They were doing private equity before private equity was an institutional asset class. So just by the nature of them thinking of private equity, they were innovators. You know, I call that private equity 1.0. And then I spent almost 15 years at Cerberus. And at Cerberus, the philosophy was to, of course, buy a deep value, but the emphasis was on improving the operations of the business as the new owner. So creating value through operational improvement. And there was a big operating team, and that was, I think, private equity 2.0. Private equity 3.0 is the era where you have deep sector expertise. You do create value as operators, but you have woven into your DNA an understanding of technology. And technology has had a tectonic impact on just about every industry in the world, but especially financial services. So this is kind of how we've built our firm around this principle of private equity 3.0. So 1.0 is affecting the transaction, 2.0 is adding value as an operator, 3.0 is the operators are the investors. There is no handoff from the guys that do the deal and the guys that deliver on the plan that you've built. And there is a deep understanding of technology and its utilization to create value. And in 2021, if you're going to start a private equity business, it has to be centered around those 3 pillars, which is exactly what Miroslav and I have done. And this is a very simplified approach to value investing. You buy well with a margin of safety, but then you get additional margin of safety because you can operate the asset and you understand the asset at the level of an operator, not as an investor or board member, which is a little distant and a little less controllable as far as an outcome is concerned. But as the actual operator of the business, that's an additional margin of safety that control affords you. And then with the ability to affect change and implement technology, that is an additional margin of safety. You're less likely to get hit by some new technology or entrant sideways. So all of these are layers of protection in what is a very conservative and prudent investment style that we practice. So in addition to buying well, how do you increase your margin of safety as an owner? You increase your margin of safety as an owner through hands-on management and responsible corporate governance. And financial services can seem really complicated, but it's not. We focus on 3 things: growing revenue, controlling costs, and making the assets that we own more productive. And at the foundation of all of that is the understanding of technology and how to use it that Miroslav brings to the table, which isn't so complicated at the end of the day. And we have a specific approach to technology where we've divided it up into 6 sectors, and I'm sure that Miroslav's happy to tell you guys all about it. He has a presentation on how to utilize technology in private equity that I find entertaining. I think you would too. But I wanted to get back to something I touched on earlier and is really why I chose this topic and why it's so near and dear to me. And that's, what is vocation? Does anyone want to hazard a guess in this context about what the word vocation means? Any hands? Laura or Mom?
A vocation is a calling.
A vocation is a calling. Okay, that's a great answer, and we'll go into that later. I had my first daughter 6 years ago, and she was born at 25 weeks, 15 weeks early, and she was treated by the UK version of a lot of your employees, the EMS and nurses, and other public employees in the UK national healthcare system. And it's a story that has a happy ending, but for 6 months, it was pretty terrifying. And for 6 months, I was going in and out of the hospital every day thinking this was the last day I was going to see my daughter. And when you're faced with real life and death, like a lot of the people in this room have been as firefighters and police officers, you kind of wonder what you're here for. What am I doing here? Why am I on this earth? And certainly you find some answers in faith. And certainly you find some answers in family. But what your heart is looking for is a calling. And a vocation will give meaning to your life. It will give meaning to your business conferences. It will give meaning to what you do with most of your waking days. That's what a vocation is. And I had a pretty good job at Cerberus at the time that my daughter was born. I was a head of European private equity. I could have mailed it in. No reason to mess that up. That was pretty comfortable. But I left. And I started down a road that eventually led me back to my old friend Miroslav, and we started Financial Services Capital. And it's, at its heart, it's dedicated to fiduciary responsibility. Miroslav and I are deeply spiritual people. We're both very religious. That's one of the things that binds us. And we believe that what we have is a vocation. And it is a happy ending. So that's me and my wife about 3 weeks in. That's when Mare almost left the hospital. And that last picture there, you can see Mare is happy and healthy. So looking for meaning in life and a vocation in your career, something deeper outside of yourself. So vocation is one's response to a call from beyond oneself. And you don't have to necessarily be religious to understand that sometimes you can get a call outside of yourself. To use one's strengths and gifts to make the world a better place through service, creativity, and leadership. The concept of vocation rests on the belief that life is about more than oneself. And I posit to you today that fiduciary responsibility is our collective calling. And that's how you should think about this conference. And that's how you should think about your careers. And that's how you should think about your contributions to the world. And that's how you should think about the meaning in your life. Just to lighten it up a little bit when it comes to fiduciaries. Some of you call them annuitants. Some of you call them beneficiaries. Some of you call them clients. I just call them mom. Thank you.